Hello, students. Welcome. Today we're going to dive into a really interesting topic in our geography syllabus, the distribution of minerals across India.
Have you ever thought about this? We always hear about big mines in states like Jharkhand or Odisha, but we almost never hear about mining in, say, Punjab or Uttar Pradesh. Why is that? Well, it's a great question, and the answer, it lies deep inside the Earth, in India's own geological story. Now, just take a look at this map. You can see it right away, can't you? Minerals aren't just everywhere. They are found in specific clusters and belts. See how they are concentrated in some areas? This unevenness, this is the main thing we are going to understand today.
All right, so here's our plan for today. First, we'll see why minerals aren't everywhere. Then we'll visit India's mineral heartland. We'll also talk about our liquid gold and gas. After that, we'll solve the mystery of the barren northern plains, understand the difference between a deposit and a mine, and finally, I'll give you some solid tips for your exam maps. It's all going to connect together step by step.
Okay, first things first. To understand minerals, we really need to understand rocks. Now, I'm sure you remember studying India's physical divisions, right? The Himalayas, the plains, the plateau. Well, the secret to where we find minerals is directly connected to the different types of rocks that form these big divisions. So, here's the most important point, the key idea. The main reason for this whole uneven distribution is simply the difference in India's geological structure. You see, different kinds of rocks were formed millions of years ago under totally different conditions, and that is what decides which minerals they hold. Look at this comparison. It makes it so clear. On one side, we have the peninsular rocks. These are very old, very hard. They are igneous and metamorphic rocks. Think of them as a storehouse for metallic minerals like iron and manganese. But on the other hand, we have the younger, layered, sedimentary rocks, mostly in coastal areas. These rocks are home to our energy minerals, like petroleum. This difference is absolutely crucial to remember for your exams. So following that idea, let's zoom in on India's mineral heartland, which is the Peninsular Plateau. As we just discussed, because of its ancient rocks, this is where most of India's metallic mineral wealth is concentrated. So why is this plateau so rich in minerals? Well, it's because it's made of those ancient crystalline rocks. What happened over millions of years is that hot, molten minerals were pushed up from deep inside the earth into the cracks and joints of these rocks. As they cooled down, they solidified and formed deposits. The smaller deposits are called veins, and the really large ones are called lodes. And this is exactly how we got our huge reserves of iron ore, manganese, bauxite, and mica in this region. Let's look at a real example to make this stick. Here's a chart for bauxite production. Just look at the top states. Odisha with a huge share, then Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra. Now, where are all these states located? That's right, they're all part of the Peninsular Plateau. This chart perfectly shows us what we've been talking about. And by the way, what exactly is bauxite? It's a simple definition you should remember for your exams. Bauxite is the ore from which we extract aluminum. It's basically a clay-like material that's left behind when surface rocks weather away and decompose over a very, very long time. All right, now let's change gears. We know the metallic minerals are in the hard rocks of the plateau, but what about our liquid gold, petroleum, and natural gas? For these, we need to look at a completely different kind of rock in completely different parts of the country. You see, our major petroleum and natural gas deposits are found in those younger sedimentary rocks we mentioned earlier. The key locations aren't in the center of India, but along the western and eastern sides. Think of places like Gujarat, Assam, and of course the very famous offshore area, Mumbai High. So how does oil actually get trapped there? Well, imagine layers of rock like a stack of carpets. Now, if you push the carpet from the sides, it forms a hump in the middle, right? Something similar happens inside the Earth. Pressure folds the rock layers upwards, creating what geologists call an anticline. Now, because oil and gas are lighter than water, they slowly travel upwards and get trapped right at the top of this hump, under a layer of rock they cannot pass through. So we've talked about the mineral-rich plateau and the oil-rich coasts, but what about that huge area in between, the great northern plains of India? Why do we find so few minerals there? It's time to solve this little mystery. Now, this is a very important fact, and it's a favorite question in exams. The vast, fertile alluvial plains of North India, they are almost completely empty when it comes to minerals that are worth mining economically. And there are two very simple reasons for this. First, it's not that the hard mineral-rich rocks aren't there. They are, but they're buried deep, deep down, under thousands of meters of soil and sediment brought by the rivers. To dig that deep would be incredibly expensive and difficult. And second, the soil on top, the alluvial soil itself, is geologically very young. It just hasn't had the time or the right conditions for minerals to form within it. Please make a note of this. It's a perfect 3-mark answer.
Let's move to a more practical idea now. Just because we find some mineral somewhere, it doesn't automatically mean we can start digging a mine there. There's a huge difference between just a mineral deposit and an actual mine. So that brings us to the question, what does it take for a mineral deposit or a reserve to actually become a mine? Well, the simple answer is it has to make economic sense. It's all about money.
A deposit is only turned into a mine if it's profitable. Think about it. We have to consider 3 things. First, how much mineral is actually in the rock? Is the concentration high enough to be worthwhile? Second, how easy is it to get out? Is it near the surface or is it miles deep? And third, how far is it from the market or a factory? If it costs more money to dig the mineral out and transport it than what you can sell it for, well, then it just stays in the ground as a deposit.
And now, let's finish up with some very practical tips that will help you in your exams, especially with those map questions, which I know can be a little tricky. If you understand today's lesson, you can score full marks here.
Okay, when you see a mineral map in your question paper, the first thing to do is don't panic. Look straight at the legend. The legend is the key. See what symbol stands for which mineral. Then look at the map itself and notice the patterns we talked about. Can you see how the iron ore and bauxite symbols are all clustered together in the peninsular plateau? It visually proves everything we learned today.
And here are my top tips for full marks. Don't just write the name of the state. That's a common mistake. Be more specific. Mention the region, like the Chota Nagpur Plateau. Even better, explain why it's there. Connect the mineral to the rock type. Give the geological reason. That shows you really understand the topic. And of course, always use the correct symbols from the legend. So let's just quickly recap the big idea from our lesson. It's a simple chain of connection. The geology of a place determines its mineral distribution, and that mineral distribution has a huge impact on the industrial development of that region. See, it all connects. And I'll leave you with one final thought to ponder. These minerals, they took millions and millions of years to form. They are a finite resource. They will run out one day. So the really important question we all have to think about is this. Now that we know where our minerals are and why they are there, how can we use this precious wealth in a planned, sustainable way to build India's future? That's something for you to think about. Thank you.